Hello, Edu-Magicians. Welcome to the Edu-Magic Podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of Edu-Magic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
I'm Casey Bell from the Google Teacher Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, Edu-Magicians, and welcome back to another episode of the Edu-Magic Podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I have a really fun episode for you to listen to. So this episode comes to you from Tim Cavey's Teachers on Fire YouTube channel, and this is also going to be a podcast on his show. But this episode was where he interviewed me about advice and encouragement for rookie teachers. So if you're a new teacher, a beginning teacher, a future teacher, a student teacher, you're going to get lots of advice from this episode. Listen in, turn up the volume, and make sure you head on over to the show notes for a very special coupon code for 10% off Edu-Magic Shine On, a guide for new teachers. Enjoy!
It's a challenging time to be a teacher. We don't get paid a lot, the days can be long and exhausting, demands from students, parents, admins, and districts can be intense. There's always room for improvement, and there is always more to do. There are always new procedures to learn, new programs to run, new strategies to master. But it's when our fire burns the lowest that we remember our purpose. We teach because we're resilient. We teach because we're problem solvers. We teach because investing in kids is one of the highest callings we can imagine. We teach because we know that the classroom can be a place of magic and possibility. We teach because we have an unquenchable fire for learning and a passion to share it. We teach because our colleagues are some of the best human beings we will ever meet. We teach because we have an opportunity to influence the global citizens that will make this world a better place. If you're still on fire for learning and growth, join the Teachers on Fire Roundtable for conversations that will warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your practice. You'll hear from real people and real educators with real solutions, not make-believe perfection, but ideas, inspiration, and a path toward change and transformation in K-12 education today. My name is Tim Cavey. I'm an 8th grade teacher, assistant principal, and the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. I'm inviting you to join us at the Teachers on Fire Roundtable. Because you matter, your voice is important, and we are all better together. Well, welcome and good morning. My name is Tim Cavey. I'm an 8th grade teacher and assistant principal and the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. And I'm so excited to bring you this conversation today, one that will warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your professional practice. I think even if you are not a new teacher, and that is the topic that we have in front of us this morning. What is our best advice? Our recommendations for new teachers? What would we tell them? What would we suggest? What would we recommend as they leave that starting gate in their career in a very challenging time, we have to say? I'm excited to jump in with my guest in one moment. But first of all, I just want to say hello to all of our viewers. Let us know where you are coming from this morning. Let us know where you're watching from. And hey, if you've got some advice to share, go ahead and share it in the chat. We'd love to talk about it here in the show. I want to say hi to my good friend Fonz in Texas. He says, I am ready. Looking forward to this great show. Welcome, Fonz. And my friend Riley, right here from Surrey, BC. Hello, Riley, and good morning. What are you doing up this early on a Saturday morning? Thank you so much for joining us. So, Dr. Sam Fessich, you were the first person that jumped to my mind when I thought about who could I really bring on who would have the energy and ideas and encouragement for these new teachers. So welcome to the show. Let's start off by asking you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your context right now.
Sure. Hey, Tim. Hey, Teachers on Fire. I am really excited to be here. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and I'm a professor of education at Grove City College in Pennsylvania. If you know about PA geography, we're between Pittsburgh and Erie, amazing outlet mall, and an amazing ed department. And I get to teach future educators all about ed tech and special ed, and I get to oversee a few of our special ed student teachers. And you know what? I absolutely love what I do. One of the best things I love teaching my students is that learning does not stop when you cross that stage of graduation. It is just beginning. Just because you have a diploma in your hand, your learning has not stopped. And it's just the start of your learning journey of being an educator of excellence. So I'm really excited to be here today to share about some tips for our new teachers. Maybe they just graduated in May, or they're just finishing up their exams and they're getting ready to enter their very first classroom. So I'm very excited to be here.
I've got the right person, Sam. I'm so excited to get into this. Want to say hello to a couple of other friends who are showing up. Dr. Eric Geis is on Facebook. Good morning, Eric. Good. Welcome here. Glad you are able to join us for a few minutes. And Livia, my friend Livia here from Vancouver. Good morning to you, Livia. Can't wait to get together shortly. Well, Sam, let's get into it. And actually, I should mention one more thing. And that is, I put out this question, and I'll put it on the screen one more time, and that is to all of our viewers, those of us, or those of you that are joining us live. Again, what is your best piece of advice for new teachers? So we've got a few friends here in the house. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think new teachers need to be thinking about? I know I've got a couple of rookies on my team. I'm sure they're feeling a little anxious, a little nervous. Those nerves are building right here at the end of August. There's so much that they need to think about. What do they need to focus on? And as you look back on your rookie experience, what would you recommend to them? So we've got another couple of hellos from LinkedIn. Khalid Omar, good morning to you, and Professor Carlos Ronsal. I'm probably not doing good justice to your name, sir, but good morning to you. I train new language teachers. Great to have you here as well. Yeah, and we would love, Dr. Sam, of course, works in the post-secondary context. This conversation will focus on K-12, but hey, you may have some advice from the graduate level as well. All right, so Dr. Sam, let's talk about your work. Set this up a little bit because we're about to go into 8 strategies, 8 recommendations, and they stem from this book on the right. So could you tell us briefly a little bit about these 2 books before we jump in?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I just happened to be at the right time at the right place when I started writing EduMagic, which is the one on the left, my side on the left. It's the gray one. It's a guide for pre-service teachers. And that one walks through 8 things I wish I knew as a future teacher. And it talks about engaging in your classes, not just as a student, but as a teacher, digital presence, your PLN, going into coursework with the mind of a teacher, especially those gen ed classes, which could be a little boring. We talk about getting out of the classroom because learning happens in those 4 walls, but a lot of learning happens outside of it. Going to conferences, even presenting at conferences as a future teacher, connecting with educators from around the world to help you build your experiences. So that's EduMagic, a guide for pre-service teachers. The one we're talking about today is EduMagic Shine On, the guide for new teachers. And this was co-written with 3 graduates from Grove City College. At the time we wrote this, they all just finished their first year, and they were at my house in October for homecoming weekend at the college. And one of the girls says, we should write a book for new teachers. I'm like, yeah, okay. A couple glasses of wine. We're like, yeah, we should write this book for new teachers. And then we decided, yeah, we can keep it with the EduMagic framework. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. But before I jump into all those different things, I just want to take you back, into the DeLorean, back to the future type thing, where we're going to go back to the early 2000s. And I was a first-year teacher, and I remember having this kind of out of body experience. Tim, I don't know if you've had this experience, but it was crazy. So at the time I was teaching students with multiple disabilities and who were in middle school grades, like 6th to 8th grade. And I had probably about 5 or 6 adults in the classroom, nurses, aides, classroom assistants, and about 7 or 8 students. And they're all coming into the classroom. This is the first day of school. And I look around and I briefly have this moment of, where's the teacher? When are we going to get started? Oh, wait, that's me. We should probably do something. Oh my gosh. And it was like a brief second. I could see myself looking down. It was so weird. And I'm like, and then just all that training just kicked right in and we got started and, did our thing. And that first year was full of so much learning. For me as a teacher, I learned so much about my students. They taught me so much about what it meant to be an educator of excellence. And we'll talk about some of those today. We'll talk about some of my experiences, and I'll talk a few about my co-authors as well, Hannah, Katie, and other Hannah, for the book too, whenever we start talking about that. But that first year, I think everybody just has to go through it, get the t-shirt, say, I survived my first year, and you'll be okay. But that first year can be tricky, especially when we're dealing with COVID now. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for laying that down. We are just about to jump into the first of 8 strategies. Just a couple more comments from our viewers. Professor Carlos says, my teachers learn how to listen. Interesting. Livia says, be authentically you.
Love that.
We've also got we've got a fan here, Dr. Sam. It's, and I'm forgetting, I'm so terrible. But the Unprofessional Podcast is here. Laura Williams saying hello from Indianapolis, Indiana. Welcome to you this morning. And Professor Carlos again says, listen to students, listen to teachers, listen to parents, listen to everybody. Yes. Is his main message. Just listen and absorb. Okay, so Dr. Sam, I think we're ready to jump in. You've got these 8 strategies. Let's start with E, expectations. What do new teachers need to know?
Yeah. So when we think about expectations, when you go into our college career, I think we kind of have this idea of what our classroom is going to be like, our ideal classroom where all the students are sitting in rows and they're listening and this is great. And we're getting to teach all the awesome content. That might not be the expectation of your first year. So we instead start off with giving the readers a prompt. What are your expectations for yourself as a teacher, as a learner, because we're always learning, and what are the expectations for your classroom? You want your students to feel valued, safe, and appreciated, and that should kind of be that driving force throughout the year, building those relationships with your students, helping them feel they are a part of this classroom. This isn't just your classroom, this is their classroom as well. And building that community, kind of like Dr. Carlos had mentioned, listen to the community, also listen to that community of learners that are sitting in front of you, whether they are kindergarten or 12th grade. They have voice and value that need to be heard, and set that up in those expectations for your classroom. Instead of for your classroom, make it with your classroom, with your students. Bring them into the fold from where the desk should be to decorating to the classroom expectations. Have them have a voice in that setup routine.
I love that idea of co-creating. We hear that a lot on EduTwitter, co-creating rubrics, and we can co-create community norms, or the right terms are escaping me. I mean, they go by different terms, I guess. Yeah. But I'm trying to avoid saying rules because we don't want to necessarily post a list of 20 rules on the wall, but we do want to have an agreement, right, about how we want to live and learn together. All right, let's move into
that. Live and learn together.
Yeah, right. Let's move into D, speaking of alliteration, dealing with disappointments.
Yes. So for this one, we talk about, there are some things that you're not going to learn in your college career that happen during your first year. So in this chapter, I share a very personal story about how after my first year of teaching, it was like May or June. I remember I was out on the boat and I got a text from, on the boat, you don't get a lot of self-service. So I came back and I must have had 30 text messages, several voicemails. Like, what is going on? Now, remember, I taught students with multiple disabilities. One of my students had passed away the night before, and they don't teach you that in college, how to deal with a student passing away. For you as the teacher, and to be a support for your staff that are in the classroom and for the other students as well. So one way that, I was able to help work through that for myself and be a support for the family was at the time, the family gave me some photos of the young man, and I made a photo collage video to play at his funeral. They also donated a lot of his adaptive equipment to the school for other kids, and we getting choked up, for other kids to use. And we named it a lending library after that student. So that was a really fun way, a positive way to remember that student, and for other kids to benefit from using some of the adaptive technology, like the adaptive computer access methods, some assistive communication, some physical therapy tools. So that was a great way to impact other lives. And I still have a picture of that student in my office at the college. It's sitting up on my bookshelf, because I never want to forget where I started from and how I've gotten to where I am. Another story that we share in dealing with disappointments is that these are pit stops along your journey. How if you're going for a long road trip, sometimes you got to pull over and do a little pit stop. But remember, we don't stay at pit stops for long. They might happen for a week. They might go on for a month or so, but we need to be able to get support, get our encouragement, get what we need from that pit stop, and keep going along our journey. That gif is great. Sorry, I got distracted. And then another disappointment that was shared by one of the co-authors, Hannah Turk. Whenever she graduated college, she was, 4.0. She was doing leadership opportunities within the education organizations. She was co-hosting and co-presenting and doing lots of really cool things. So whenever she started her first year, she's like, I got this. This is going to be great. Well, the school that she went to wasn't a very good fit for her. And she ended up being on a teacher improvement plan during her first year. When she first got the news, she felt like it was heartbreaking. Like, how can I be on a teacher improvement plan? I've done so much. I've done this in college, and I, did all these great things. And it was very deflating and discouraging. But then as she started to get extra professional development, to get those supports, she needed a little bit more than what the district was providing. She's like, what I thought was a disappointment ended up being something that helped me become a stronger teacher for my students. So if you're a first-year teacher and you get on an improvement plan your first year, that is not an end-all, be-all. That does not define you as an educator. It's there to help support you, because your administration wants to help you. And Tim, maybe you can speak more to that, but we want to help and support you along the way. And if you get, some sort of improvement plan, just go to the trainings, learn what you can, because that's what's going to help you become an even better teacher.
It's so interesting that this has come up, because I was just listening in a Voxer group this week about one administrator sharing about this idea of growth plans. And I think that terminology
sounds better.
The growth plan or improvement plan, that terminology can sort of vary from state to state, right, in terms of what it means or what it represents. And you're right, in some states that's a great offense to teachers. But I love your takeaway is just roll with it. Try to take away what you can, try to grow, try to improve. You may not agree with the take of the supervisor, but it's another opportunity along the way. A couple of comments to highlight before we continue on. Hillary on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a busy place this morning. She says, spend more time on expectations and a classroom as a family in the beginning days and less stress on the curriculum. I think that's what you were saying, Dr. Sam. This will pay off in the long run, where the curriculum will be more valuable. And Livia is saying, love the pit stops. I love that too. That was where the slow clap came from.
That was awesome.
She says, adversity is an opportunity to learn. Such a mindset thing. And actually, speaking of that, that's why I love to start with a little bit on growth mindset right at the beginning of the year. That's not easy to convince students that failure and adversity is actually a good thing to embrace. But once you can start to get them there, and the power of yet, right? That can be really helpful. Well, let's move into the third strategy, the third tip, Dr. Sam, and that is unstoppable.
Yeah. So if you're noticing a theme, EduMagic is being spelled out here. So unstoppable. This is, where, you're going to have days where your face hurts from smiling so much, at school, and you're going to have days where you just might be crying in your car, and everything in between. and all those days are completely normal. We all have those days where we're like, why am I going to school today? Oh, do I want to get out of bed? I don't know about this. But having a spot, I have a teacher drawer a drawer in my office that has every single card or every little thank you note or postcard or something, even if it's a little sticky, that it's just encouragement, because you got to remember your why. And I talk about that in EduMagic Guide for Pre-Service Teachers. Your why for our college students, your why is going to be what keeps you fueled during your 8 a.m. final in the dead of winter. It's going to be like, this is why I'm getting up and going to this final, so I can be an educator of excellence for my future students. But for our new teachers out there, your why is what's going to keep you fueled throughout those days where you might not feel like going to work, and that's okay. And we need to talk about them. I think in this part is a great time to talk about the importance of teacher self-care. And I know that that's been a hot topic throughout COVID. If you're looking for a fantastic person that is a teacher self-care enthusiast, I love that title, by the way. Her name is Kiana Cole, and you can find her over on Twitter and Instagram, Kicking It with Ki, Ki, and she sends text messages of encouragement. She has beautiful programs that are ready to go to help teachers with their self-care. But one of the things that I learned as a new teacher and as a new professor, something that I wish I learned back whenever I was a future teacher, is the importance of self-care, setting boundaries for yourself, for your students. And I started doing that as a professor. In my syllabi, I write, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I get emails that are the same message multiple times throughout the day if I don't respond right away. So I tell my students, hey guys, give me 24 hours to respond to your email. 48 on the weekends. And if I don't respond to you within that time, something has happened. So I will get back to you within 24 hours of your email or your DM or whatever it might be. Or at least I'll say, hey, I see this message. I'm looking into it. So that's one of the boundaries that I set up. Who was I talking? Oh, Brent Cooley, who wrote Edu Influence. He has a strategy called feeding the stray cats. Don't feed the stray cat. So meaning, if you get a text message from a parent at 11 o'clock at night on your Remind group, do not respond to that text message because you're just feeding the stray cat. Wait until like 8 a.m. or whatever you are ready to deal with that. Don't even look at it. Don't even look at it. It'll be okay in the morning. But he's just such a fun guy to get that real advice from. And I love that strategy of don't feed the stray cat. So setting up those boundaries, setting up and go back to those expectations. What are your expectations for yourself as a teacher, as a learner, and as a leader? Setting those boundaries, going into some self-care routines, having a morning routine, a wake-up routine, sharing, thinking about before you even get out of bed, just checking in with your body, checking in with yourself. Don't check that social media, check in with you so you can check in with others.
I love that bit about feeding the stray cats. That is a new one for me. I'm going to be using that one.
Yeah. Every time I talk about self-care, I have to bring up Brent's feeding the stray cats story because it's money. It's great.
Yeah. All right. I created these beautiful cards and I'm forgetting to use them. So let's bring up number 4.
Hey, look at that.
Number 4 in this series of 8 pieces of advice for new teachers with Dr. Sam Fessich. Here it is, making it work. What do we have to say here?
Right. So, throughout the book, we kind of set you up with setting those expectations, thinking about your planning, setting those routines, your management, and your life out of school. So thinking about how those components really come together is all about making it work. So looking through your classroom management strategies, what are some things you're doing with your students to support that positive interaction? And I think, was it Heidi who had mentioned, is there a Heidi or a Holly? Can't remember. Somebody is mentioning something on the chat here, but she had mentioned building that community that first day of class. And it's Hillary. I'm sorry, Hillary. It's
there.
Hillary.
We go.
Thank you. So setting up those expectations the first day of class, bringing that community of learners together. So one of the things we suggest is bye syllabus day. And yes, that is like an NSYNC reference. So sorry if you have the song in your head for the rest of the day. But instead of, doing your syllabus, just like every other person's doing in the school, build relationships between students, among students, and between you and your students. So one of the things that I love to do is before COVID, we would have a whole bunch of games out like Uno and Dutch Blitz and Twister, Exploding Kittens, all sorts of, and there's like a burrito one where you throw a burrito at somebody. I don't know, it's really fun. But having all of these games, because usually my students, their first semester freshmen, they don't know too many people. So now we're playing some games. Everybody's kind of on an equal playing field. And then we do the intros, name, major, year, why do you want to be a teacher? But instead of why you want to be a teacher, what's your walk-on song? Like if you were walking into the classroom, what would be the jam that's dropping as you do the high five tunnel coming into the class? Yeah, I know, right? Like, woo! I think my daughter played Who Let the Dogs Out too many times. So I think that is her like official walk-on song. But thinking about, building those relationships through music. I mean, we have a shared playlist that goes from like Disney songs to hip hop to some country. I mean, and everything in between. But like, oh, I never heard this song. Oh, this is really cool. I love the beat on this one. But, building relationships with your students. And one thing I love to do at the end of that first day with my students is, after they've all introduced themselves, I'll say, all right, if someone can stand up or introduce everybody to the class, it's usually a 25-person class. I'll give everybody 5 bonus points. Well, they start looking around like, oh my gosh, I wish I paid attention, because you're like, la, la, la. You're like, okay, when's it my turn? What am I going to say? We're so focused on what we are going to say. We're not listening, like Dr. Carlos had mentioned, not listening to others around us. Usually nobody could do it. But once Wednesday when we meet again, somebody always comes up and says, are you going to do the bonus thing again? I think I know everybody now. Isn't that funny? I'm like, yes, I will. 3 bonus points this time. And then if somebody could do it, everybody gets it. We're like, yay, that's great. And then Friday, I up the ante. I'm like, okay, we're going to do 1 bonus point, and I'll bring donuts on Monday if someone can name everybody in the classroom. Because I think it's such a shame to be in a class with people you don't even know their names, So our classrooms need to be these spaces that have that community, that have those shared understandings of expectations of what are our expectations for ourselves. What does it mean to be a learner in this classroom, whether it's pre-K all the way through our adult learners?
Beautiful. And like Livia Chan just said a moment ago, I mean, this is great advice for all teachers, Dr. Sam.
Thanks.
So thank you so much. I mean, this is priming me, and I've been at it for quite a while.
Oh,
I will
thank
say
you.
on the playlist, again, thinking about new teachers, maybe veterans, if you haven't put together a class playlist. Last year, I put out that question on Google Classroom, and I let students drop a YouTube link to their favorite song. I said, it's got to be clean. I don't want to be blasting expletives through the class speakers.
No, not so much.
But drop that in there, and it's very easy to build a YouTube playlist, and then you can just have that running in the mornings as students come in,
Yes.
and they'll hear their favorite songs. So another great idea. Okay, let's get into number 5. I hope I'm at the right one. All in this together.
Yeah, so this one's all about building that collaboration, because we know that when we're teaching our students, we're not just the only ones in that classroom. We might have support people, support therapists or professionals. Maybe a student has a personal care aide. Maybe we're working alongside a special ed teacher doing some co-teaching, work on adaptations and accommodations. So understanding that you're going to be working with a lot of other educators and professionals. So building those relationships, building that collaboration to help build up that student or students in your classroom. We're all in this together type thing. And yes, sorry about the High School Musical reference there, but working with our colleagues for those main goals, educating students the best that we can, and keeping students first and foremost. It's not in a co-teaching situation, for example, it's not a my kids versus your kids. It's all of our kids. How can we come together to best support all the learners in that class? So having partnerships with special education, with if there's any aides or assistants coming into the classroom. Oh, yay, that's awesome, Stephanie. Thank you. Or also making those collaborations with administrators, because they are also your supporters as well. And of course, the families, because, with COVID, families kind of got a little sneak peek, behind the curtain there when we're teaching our students. So although they had kind of like a key to the door, they could just look in, keep the window open while you're teaching, meaning like let them come into the class virtually and, let them just still be a part of that learning experience with their child, whether it is through classroom newsletters or classroom emails. And a really great strategy somebody shared on my podcast, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it is, but she has a classroom email that goes out every Friday. But throughout the week, she's adding to it in draft mode. So Monday, she might have a draft email up. She doesn't have it like to anybody yet. She's just Friday newsletter or whatever it is. And then Monday, she'll write, this is what we did on Monday. This is what we did on Tuesday. And then Friday, it's ready to roll. She cleans it up a little bit, pops it in Grammarly or anything like that. And then it's ready to go. So she's not stressing the Friday afternoon, 3:00. I got to send this newsletter. Now it's something that she's developed throughout the week. Another really great strategy, to help bring those families in, but to support our students would be a look back and a look ahead message. And I know with our virtual learning, this has been really helpful for my college students. Even it's just a little announcement I put out on Teams. You can do this on Google Classroom or wherever you host your learning management stuff. Here's what we did is a look back, look ahead, and then has the whatever the Monday was of that week. Look back. Here's what we did this week. Do you remember we did these things? Here are the activities. Here's the homework. Here's what's going on for next week. Here are the activities. Here's the homework. You probably plan your schedule for that. And usually some sort of motivational video, like something from kid president or kid superintendent. Those are one of my favorite ones I love to share out with my students. Just have that motivation, have that encouragement. Oh yeah, don't forget we did these things and here's what's coming up so you can plan accordingly. And that also helps families kind of keep in just, oh yeah, you guys did do that. Oh yeah, you did do that homework. And let's plan our schedule out so you have enough time to get your work done.
I love everything you were saying there, and it sort of sends me in so many different directions. I've heard that video can be a really powerful connection too in terms of building that relationship with parents. I'm just hesitating to even suggest that to new teachers because I feel like that the idea of recording a 2-minute video is so overwhelming for a lot of teachers. It's like, stressful. I've got to set it all up and take an hour to edit it. So maybe I won't suggest that for new teachers, but down the road, veteran teachers, think about it. It is so powerful to share that video message. Yeah. All right, let's move into the next one, getting ready. Tell us about getting ready.
Yeah, so this one's better explained if I show you a picture of the chapter. There we go. This one has checklist upon checklist of things to be thinking about the first week, things to be getting ready for, from procedures, even like getting down to the nitty gritty. What am I going to do if a student's absent? How do I record? What's my morning routine? Where do I put in lunch count? Where do my students put their stuff? Like if they're coming into a face-to-face, a traditional learning space with technology, here's and you'll see throughout the book, we have there we go, QR codes. Sorry, the camera's opposite. and spots for people to reflect. But one of these important topics here, thinking about technology use, what does your school currently have? What are they using? Can you get a free trial of that before you even begin? How do you get access to that? What's your password? Very simple things that I think us veteran teachers take for granted, but new teachers, it's okay to ask these questions. When will you get access to the school email, your email portal, your grade portal? Where do the grades go? When do they need to be put in? What about lesson planning? All that good stuff. So this is just question upon question and thinking about procedures and just getting ready for the school year. So you have most of those questions answered and ready to go. So we have also getting ready tips throughout here, like ask for help from others, change and improve. So reflect along the way. So as you're teaching lessons, I think you're going to get better at kind of reading the room. I think that's a skill that comes with a little bit of practice, but you'll know oh, they're not getting this. And I know it's hard to do when you're teaching icons virtually, but you can still do little check-ins and things like that. But being able to make changes and reflections in the moment and jotting those down in your lesson planning is really going to help you out. Also, a big tip here, being practical over pretty. So don't feel like your classroom has to be Pinterest perfect. It does not need to be Pinterest perfect. Look there for inspiration, but don't go crazy with your classroom decor. The focus should be the curriculum, the learning, the relationships with your students. But there's lots of stuff in this chapter, tons of checklists and QR codes and little tips along the way to help you get ready for your first year. All those things that we learned about and would have asked, before the first day are kind of in that chapter.
Dr. Sam, all I have to ask is, where were you my first year? Oh my goodness. I need that kind of a list. And in fact, I feel like I need to No, not photocopy. That I need to be careful about copyright. But I've got a couple of rookies. Maybe I need to give them copies of your book. That might really be the best.
Yeah.
Woo! Almost got in trouble there. Okay. By the way, I was going to say, in terms of the Pinterest classroom, today it's also the TikTok classroom, right?
Yes, true.
And I like what you said about, look to them for inspiration, but don't hold yourself to that bar. Okay.
Yes.
You don't need to spend 30 hours on a weekend getting your classroom ready and making it look like Disney. Okay. So
no,
take
it does
the
not
pressure
need to,
off.
It does not need to be Instagram photo worthy. No, it needs to be a space for learning and relationships. And if you have that, you're good to go.
I just want to say that Dr. Sam is going through this amazing series, loving it, by the way. A couple more points to go. At the end, we're going to talk about your advice. I collected a few
Yes, I'm excited to learn
pieces of
more.
advice from teachers on different platforms. I've got those all ready to go. Catching up on a few comments here, Livia says, if we call parents as partners, we need to inform and include them so they know how to support their child. Sometimes they want to, they don't know how. That's a great point. Margaret on LinkedIn says, building relationships from the first day of school is crucial. Years later, my students stop and say hello. When I see them at a coffee shop, they are happy to let me know how they are doing in their post-secondary studies or jobs. Love connecting with students after high school. After high school is the key there, but following their careers on social media. And Doreen is also on LinkedIn. She says, nice ideas. Well, thank you, Doreen. Okay, here we go. We've gotten ready. Love the checklist. Wow. Maybe that's just my personality, but that one really resonated. Let's get into number 7, which is inspiration.
Yes, inspiration. So you can find inspiration in lots of different ways. We talked about Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, all those things, but don't compare yourself to what somebody else is doing. Meaning, I think Amy Porterfield shares this in her podcast, and she has Online Marketing Made Easy podcast, but she shares, don't compare your first day to somebody else's 15th first day or 5th first day of teaching. Also, don't compare what your classroom looks like to what others look like on Pinterest and on Instagram. It needs to be a space of learning and leading and relationship building with your students. Finding inspiration. So let's talk about, where do you find inspiration from? Maybe you have some favorite quotes, or remembering your why. We can always go back to that, like you had shared in the intro. When our fires burn out, remembering our why is so important. So having your why posted, maybe as a background on your laptop or on your desktop, having it as a Post-it note somewhere where you see every day, you can reflect on that. And your why, it might change. Like, for example, my why changed. Whenever I was in college, when I first started, I thought I was going to be the best first grade teacher the world has ever seen. I've never been a first grade teacher, nor do I plan to be one. But my why and my journey has changed throughout my career. And as a first year teacher, I thought I would be a multiple disabilities teacher for middle school students for the next 30 years. Then I find that there's some ed tech down the hall, and let's bring that into the classroom and see how that goes. And then, like, the learning and the inspiration to keep learning, blending special ed and ed tech together, just kept that fuel and that fire burning. And now now we're blazing with this huge fire of having this love of teaching others. How can ed tech and special ed work together? And now I'm doing something I never thought I would be able to do. So yeah, having so much, having a spot for you to reflect on your inspiration, reflect on your why, and being okay with your why, maybe taking a few shifts along the way. But as long as your focus is students and helping students, whether they are pre-K to adult learners, you are doing what's right as a in your teacher heart. So finding inspiration, keeping that inspiration front and center, and keep that learning going and focusing on your why.
Just to dig it down on that just a little bit, you are so good with social media, and I love how you model sort of good professional practice on social media for your pre-service teachers. Do you suggest that they create LinkedIn profiles? Do you suggest they go to Twitter first? How do you approach that with because we know it can be overload or overwhelmed for some.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that earlier in the show, I think before we started recording. Yeah, so in EduMagic, a guide for pre-service teachers, that's the gray one. There's a whole chapter on digital presence and uniting your PLN. At the time when the book was written, Twitter was pretty cool. Instagram was just up and coming. But for now, for my students, I have them choose, do you want to do Twitter or Instagram? If so, I want you to, promote yourself as the future, as the professional educator that you are. Even though you're learning to be an educator, you are a professional educator. So we have to, be careful what we post. So having a little, they have to post 3 times a week, and some students will post, hey, here's a great bulletin board. Here's a great quote. Here's what I'm reading. Here's a cool activity I did with my students. Just having them share their ideas. First starting out as learners, not lurkers. I think lurkers sound weird. So they're learners. They're looking through the content. What are other people posting? What are some hashtags that you're enjoying? And then really cultivating that feed to reflect that. I don't even look at my home feed anymore. I just have like on Hootsuite or TweetDeck, I have columns of content that I want to see. My home feed gets super overwhelming, but I can go in onto TweetDeck or Hootsuite, and I can customize. What am I looking at? Am I looking at hashtag EdTech, hashtag EduMagic? Are there certain accounts that I'm following and I want to be up to date on, see what they're posting about, like Teachers on Fire, keeping all that information forefront. So what's coming in is stuff that's positive, that's going to feed my teaching soul, that's not going to drain the life out of it. And I think somebody had just shared in the chat about comparison is the opposite of, thank you, is the thief of joy. Absolutely, Livia. I agree 100%. So thinking about, what are you posting? How is it helping you as a future teacher? Who are you following? Is that helping you as a teacher? Because even if you reply, you comment, you like, anything reflects who you are as an educator of excellence. So being mindful of all that.
100%. Couldn't have said it any better. It's all about curation, right? And
Yes.
you shape your experience on social media by who you follow. Doreen on LinkedIn is saying the name of the book, please. So happy to oblige, Doreen. Let me see if I can find it here again. Dr. Sam's books. She's got EduMagic, a guide for pre-service teachers, and EduMagic Shine On, a guide for new teachers. And that brings us to our conversation today. All right, we are at the final. Let me take that comment off if I can find that. Too many buttons to click here.
No, you're
All
doing
right.
great. Yay.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so we're at the last step. Check yourself.
Yes,
Tell us
this was
about
a
this
fun
one.
chapter. So we could have just said conclusion, but no, it's check yourself. So in this one, I think sometimes as first year teachers, we come in, we want to change the world. We have all these great things and wonderful things, and keep that excitement, keep that momentum, but know that you are a learner first and foremost. You are always going to be learning. So learn from others around you, learn from the veteran teachers, learn from your administration, learn from the administrative assistant, the custodians, everybody out there in your district, in your school, learn from them. Keep your ideas and have that ready to go, and keep that momentum and that excitement. But know that you're a first year teacher. You still have a lot to learn as an educator of excellence. So keeping that growth mindset of, I'm always going to be learning. I'm always going to be growing. And that's something that I get to do as a teacher. Not something I have to do. It's something I get to do. And I'm going to learn from my colleagues. I'm going to learn from the support people, and understanding that, yes, you do have a voice as a new teacher. Sorry, not as a future teacher. As a new teacher, you do have a voice. So let your voice be heard, but always, listen first, then be heard. Kind of what Dr. Carlos was saying, listen to those around you, listen to the parents, the families, the admins, the community, listen to your colleagues. They have great advice as well, and they're going to learn from you too. So don't feel like you don't have anything to offer, because as a first year teacher, you have a lot to offer, and people are going to be looking to you for advice as well, but be open to learning from others.
I love what you just said there about coming in. I mean, those new teachers, you have that clean slate. You're coming in with these brand new ideas, and you don't have the burden of, we've always done it this way. So that is a blessing that you're bringing into your school communities. Don't shy away from that whatsoever. Sam, this was wonderful. I want to do a quick review, and then we will get to those pieces of advice that our teachers threw out there on social media. So once again, if you are joining us late in the conversation, we are taking 8 tips and strategies from Dr. Sam's book, EduMagic Shine On. There it is. So here we go. We've got expectations, dealing with disappointments, and those disappointments will come. Unstoppable, making it work, all in this together, getting ready. Oh, I love those checklists. Can't wait to share that resource. Inspiration and check yourself. Check yourself.
Yes.
So thank you so much for all of that wisdom, Dr. Sam. All right, we've
Oh, my
got one
pleasure.
comment. Olivia is saying continuous learning is so important, and we agree with you, Olivia. In fact, one thing that ironically sort of gets lost sometimes in K to 12 education is it's all about the learning. You know, we do
Right.
so many other things, and we get working, we get busy. It's all about learning and growth, and we need to model that as teachers. So never a bad place to say, "Hey, class, I'm learning this too. I'm
Mm-hmm.
figuring this out." All right, let's go to, I'm so excited to share. Now, I put this question out on different social media platforms. Dr. Sam, jump in here at any time. Let us know what you think. Let's start at LinkedIn. So,
Great.
Tim, let me get that logo off the screen. That's a little distracting here. Okay, bye-bye. Tim Elias from the IT department at Faith Academy says, win them over. How? Find out a Find out a bit of their world and incorporate these things into your teaching. Love it. And
Yes.
Honora Wall says, I would get Harry Wong's The First Days of School to read ASAP. Those classroom systems make the rest of it smoother. That is such a famous book. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
Tim and Honora. Any comments on those two pieces of advice, Dr. Sam?
Yeah, so for Tim, find out a bit about the role and incorporate into your teaching. I think that just goes back to best practice of incorporating real world learning opportunities and bringing those interests, getting to know your students, building those relationships, and bringing that back into the classroom because that's where it belongs. Don't just leave it on a data sheet on your Google Drive, but actually use that information. Hey, my students are into whatever they're into, and see if you can incorporate that into the class.
Yeah,
And then
so
as
good.
for that, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say again, thank you, Tim and Honora. But are you familiar with this? I'm sure you've heard of it. I have never read The First Days of School. Have
Oh,
you?
yes. I actually got that as a first year teacher as our professional development book study. And I think it was a couple of editions ago. But recently, I got something in my college mailbox that said it was the book that bookstores hate to sell because they never get it back. And it was Harry Wong's book. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
It is legendary, absolutely legendary.
Yes.
So I'm going to trust her advice on that. All right, let's go over to Facebook. Facebook group, the Teachers on Fire Facebook group was buzzing. If you're not a part of it, make sure to hop in there. Find me, join us. Lots of good conversations going. Let me get that message off the screen. Okay, so first pieces of advice from Erica Sandstrom, the green screen gal in Massachusetts. She says 1 week at a time and stay present. Oh, and breathe deeply often. She's all about wellness and breathing deeply. She is not fooling around with the breathing deeply, and she's got some devices and strategies to help do that. Thank you, Erica. Trina says, Trina is a former classmate, master's cohort classmate of mine. Great to see her here. She says, connection and relationships with your students. Build a community in your classroom before worrying about all of the curriculum. That has been a theme this morning. And Dr. Matt Rhodes says, have the mindset of think less is more. Also be in the moment and not take too much work home or work on the weekends. What's your advice there, Dr. Sam? I know you've touched on it a little bit, but how can teachers make sure they're not working into the late hours and the weekends and still have a life?
Yeah, we talk about that in EduMagic Shine On. You know, I was one of those new teachers that would go in early and stay late. And so were some of the other co-authors. Some would, stay late or come in early, or some would do both. And quickly, that's an unmanageable, you can't maintain that for the whole school year. So pick one. Do one or the other, but only do it a couple days a week, maybe 3 days a week, go in early and leave at your contracted time. I was listening to a podcast, I don't remember which one, where you get an accountability partner who also leaves at 3:00 and like, okay, it's 3:00. It's time to go. Not, oh, wait, just one more thing. No, it's 3:00. We got to go. So have an accountability partner. Get out the door at your contract time at least 1 day a week, because you know what? There's still going to be work there when you come back. And it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to have those tests returned within 24 hours. So maybe use some technology to help you out with that. If you're using a lot of like multiple choice or true and false, try some things that are going to auto grade for you, save you teacher time, save you some teacher sanity too. So pick either or, stay early or go late, or go in early or stay late. It's okay. Just don't do both, and don't do it for the whole week.
Oh, 100%. I'm a big fan of something called Parkinson's Law, which says the time allowed to a project will expand, the work will expand to fill the time allowed to it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The work will expand to fill the time allowed to it. If you give lesson planning 2 hours, it'll fill the 2 hours. If you give it the whole evening, it'll fill the whole evening. So
Yes.
it's not a bad idea to somehow, and I know this is hard for new teachers, but somehow put boundaries on that work time.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself an appointment. Say, I'm going to meet someone for drinks or mini golf at 8 p.m. or whatever it might be, just force yourself to get away from the work a little bit. All right. This is fun. Let's keep going. A few more we've got from Dr. Eric Geis. He says, take time to get to know your custodians and secretaries.
Yes.
Some will say the most important people in the building right here. Olivia says, my chapter in Because of a Teacher, that's a new book just out from George Couros, gives advice to myself as a first-year teacher titled Leading and Learning with Heart, and Be Authentically You as You Do Just That. HEART is an acronym. Let me know if you'd like to know what each stands for. Thank you so much, Olivia, and I wish I had clicked see more, but I can't see anymore right there. And Belinda says, you can't be and learn everything in one go. Everything you've learned about behavior management is probably wrong. Okay. So I guess the takeaway there is take some of this professional conversation with a grain of salt. Lots of different ideas out there for sure, including don't smile till Christmas. I'm sure you've heard that one.
Yeah.
Your students are most likely as overwhelmed as you. So break everything down into the most basic steps. Take it nice and slow. All right.
So kind of going back to what someone I mentioned earlier about, less is more, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of strategies for behavior management. So many strategies that you can find and try, and knowing that, there's a difference between behavior management and classroom management and student behavior, all those different things. And that's why so many people have mentioned the importance of building a relationship, because all that really stems from building that relationship with your student first and foremost, because then all those other things will reflect upon that.
So good. 2 more slides to go here from Facebook. Still more. I said the Facebook group was alive.
Yeah, they were.
More comments there. Erin, another former classmate. Good to see you, Erin. She says, ask for help when you need it. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think sometimes new teachers feel like they're being a bother to someone. Go to those veterans, go to those administrators, and, plague them with questions if you've got them. They are all about helping. Lindsay Titus, who is kind of the queen of teacher wellness. She says, create an evening and morning routine that are aligned to you. Spending even just 5 minutes in you ignites your inner passion and purpose for all you serve in the day ahead. So good. And Dr. Brandon Beck, remember why you do what you do. It all comes back to serving students. Yes. Relationships before content. And I've got one more graphic or sort of a meme here. You've seen this one, Dr. Sam. Relationships before rigor, grace before grades, patience before programs, love before lessons. Thank you, Julie from New York. So good. Well, Dr. Sam, we've given new teachers a lot to think about, and I hope they will feel free on the replay to rewind the tape, or if they're on the podcast to replay this episode. I want to say thank you again for joining us today. I know your time is valuable. As we start to wrap up, could you tell us, what else have you got on the go? What's your next project? What are you involved in? How can we reach out and connect with your work?
Absolutely. So you can find me over on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at sfesich. That's SFECICH. And I have another book in the works. It's called Shine Bright Student Teachers. And it's just for our student teachers in the crowd. And it helps you get ready to slay student teaching before, during, and after. So very excited about that one.
All right, and again, in case you missed it, we've got EduMagic, a guide for pre-service teachers, and EduMagic Shine On, a guide for new teachers as well. Fantastic resources. You heard a lot of the gems in short form here today. And did you mention the podcast, Dr. Sam?
We're here on a podcast. I did not. I did not mention the podcast. I'm also going to drop the link to my site here as well in our private chat. So you can find my podcast. It's called EduMagic. There's kind of a theme here, EduMagic. And this month in August, we're prepping student teachers, but in September, we're going to start shining a light on new teachers and help you guys get ready. We're actually going to go through all 8 of these principles in EduMagic Shine On. So I'm very excited. It's a podcast just for future new beginning educators. And I want to thank you guys all so much for joining us on this Saturday morning and continuing to be an educator of excellence. Thank you.
I love that. And I am also appreciative. Livia, you've been here from start to finish. So appreciate your support and everyone else joining us. Again, LinkedIn was buzzing today. That was a lot of fun.
That's fun.
If you are listening on the podcast, thank you so much as well. Dr. Sam, have a wonderful year. Thank you again for sharing your time with the show today. And Teachers on Fire, wherever you are, make sure that during these challenging times, you share that bit of encouragement with a colleague who needs it. Keep their fire burning bright and have a fantastic school year. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
And there you have it, EduMagicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more EduMagic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram @sfessage. Until next time, you have the EduMagic within you.